People all over the United States were shocked when Mike Wolf was sentenced and led away in handcuffs. Everyone thought that he was arrested because of a fight over antiques or maybe a business issue with the History Channel. Breaking news says Wolf was arrested because his former co-host Frank Fritz's death wasn't caused by natural causes, as was first said. Instead, detectives now say it was murder with intent. According to medical accounts, Fritz was found with levels of drugs in his body that could have killed him. He was intentionally overdosed, and Wolf was charged with murder because it was planned and not a mistake. It's hard to understand why you would drug a former business partner who trusted you fully. Some might even say it's bad. Many fans thought the fight between the two picks was just for TV ratings. But Wolf was already in jail and facing serious charges for what prosecutors called a murder done out of jealousy and greed. However, there were reports on social media that Wolf's charges were temporarily lowered while investigators gathered more proof. In another post, it was said that Wolf was first arrested after an American Pickers team member put him at Fritz's house when Fritz died. The Iowa State Police did a full investigation and found strong proof against Wolf, such as his fingerprints on medicine bottles and strange text messages sent to Fritz. This led them to push for first-degree murder charges. There were problems with Frank Fritz's toxicology results, which led to the start of the investigation into his death. The stated cause of his death was complications from a stroke, but the autopsy showed that he had dangerously high levels of prescription drugs in his body, levels that were much higher than what would have been recommended for his condition. This raised red flags right away, especially since Fritz had been very good about taking his medicine as prescribed while he was recovering. In secret, the Iowa State Police began looking into who had access to Fritz in his last hour. What they found shocked even officers who had done this before. Wolf's car was seen arriving at the house late at night on security video from Fritz's neighborhood, about 3 hours before the police were called. By late that night, Wolf had called 911 to say that he had gone to check on his old friend and found him not responding. When rescuers got there, Fritz wasn't moving or responding, and there was no pulse. People tried to bring him back to life, but failed, and he was declared dead at the scene. At first, it seemed like it had something to do with his previous stroke, but the lab results showed otherwise. What made detectives especially suspicious was how Wolf acted right after Fritz's death. He didn't grieve as one might think. Instead, he moved quickly to take control of Fritz's collection and intellectual property. Within 48 hours, he talked to Fritz's lawyers about buying the rights to use his name and picture on American Pickers merchandise in the future. According to what the production staff said, he also went straight to Fritz's storage areas to get to the valuable antiques that had never been shown on the show. When talking about work so soon after Fritz's death, Wolf seemed surprisingly focused and not very sad, according to several crew members. When police checked Wolf's home and office, they found a hidden safe with several unlabeled prescription bottles that turned out to contain the same drugs that were found in Fritz's system. The most damning thing was a diary that was found in Wolf's travel bag. In it, he had written a lot about how angry he was at Fritz. Some writings were from years ago and used more and more rude language. Just a few weeks before Fritz died, he wrote, "F thinks he can come back and take half the spotlight again. He doesn't remember that the show would not happen without me. He has turned into a problem. I can only save what I've made in one way, the network tells me." Wolf was surprisingly calm during the 6-week trial. He sat quietly next to his lawyers as the prosecution explained how he had carefully planned Fritz's death. The jury heard that he had been looking into drugs that can't be tracked, and ways to make a murder look like it was caused by natural causes. His search records on the internet showed that he had looked up questions like, "Can drug interactions after death be found?" "How to make someone's death look like it was caused by problems with a stroke." The prosecution said Wolf had used Fritz's past health problems as an excuse to kill him. Crew members who used to work on American Pickers said they saw troubling changes in the relationship between Wolf and Fritz in the years before Fritz quit the show and later died. One production assistant said she had heard heated arguments about where the show should go in the future, with Wolf wanting full creative control. Since he was sick, he told Frank that he no longer had the right to equal credit. The helper gave evidence. Several witnesses said Wolf was becoming more and more controlling, often talking badly about Fritz to network execs and cutting him off from longtime antiques friends. Danielle Colby's emotional statement may have been the most moving. She reluctantly went on the stand for the prosecution, She talked about how she had to hold back tears as she talked about telling Wolf what he did to Fritz. She said, "I saw that Mike had become obsessed with being the only face of American Pickers. He got defensive and angry when I asked him about making peace with Frank. He told me to stop getting involved in things that don't concern you." Colby said he found disturbing notes about Fritz's medication plan in Wolf's office and asked Wolf about them. Wolf said he was only worried about Frank's health. The defense team tried to make it seem like Wolf and Fritz had a bond that was misunderstood and that Wolf had really tried to make things right with Fritz before he died. They called in executives from the networks to testify about Wolf's public comments in support of Fritz's recovery, but Fritz's personal doctor said that even though Fritz was worried about his health, he was optimistic about his recovery and making plans to start his own antiques business. This evidence seriously weakened the theory. The doctor also said that he had never given Fritz such high doses of the drugs that were found in his blood. Wolf's carefully kept calm started to break during cross-examination. He got angry with the prosecutor when she asked him straight if he had given Fritz the medicines. "Do you know what it's like to make something happen while someone else takes the credit? To smile for the cameras while everyone else thinks he's just as important to the show's success? Because of his temper tantrum, his defense team had to call a break, but the damage had already been done." Later, the jurors said that this moment was very important to their decision-making because it showed how angry Wolf was at Fritz, even though he had left the show years before. When forensic accountants talked about strange changes they saw made to Wolf's business structure, it became clear that they were after money. Wolf had been quietly changing his businesses in the months before Fritz's death so that they could take over his intellectual property if he became unable to work or died. He had also bought Fritz a business insurance policy that would pay out $5 million to Fritz's company if something happened. Prosecutors also said Wolf had set up several fake companies that Fritz didn't know about and was putting valuable items into these companies, which together had assets worth over $2 million. The jury only talked about the case for 4 hours before returning with a guilty decision. When the judge said he would be locked up for life without the chance of release, everything went horribly wrong. Wolf had been calm during the whole trial, but all of a sudden he jumped up and started yelling. "You don't get it! He was going to make everything worse. He was going to ruin my reputation." He charged across the defense table and knocked over water cups and legal pads. The bailiffs ran after him, but he was already swinging wildly toward Fritz's family before they could stop him. There were screams and pushes for the exits from the hall. As Wolf got away again, he grabbed an old walking stick that had been brought in as proof and swung it around like a weapon, hitting one of the bailiffs in the shoulder. "The American Pickers was my work!" His screams went up as 3 more police officers knocked him to the ground. "It was my life's work!" As police tried to restrain Wolf, he continued to fight fiercely, kicking and screaming about betrayal. The judge was taken out of the courtroom. When Wolf tried to attack Fritz's sister, who was at the punishment, security had to walk her out of the room. "I got everything I deserved," he screamed. "It was my show," as they finally put his hands behind their backs. Wolf locked eyes with Danielle Colby, who was sitting in the hall, and yelled, "Tell them the truth." This was the most shocking part. Tell them the truth about Frank. Colby did not look back, clearly upset, while other crew members started crying. The trial has split up the American Pickers family, with some sticking up for Wolf and others giving evidence against him. Court papers showed that Wolf had been deliberately turning crew members against Fritz in the years before he died. This caused major rifts in the production team that may never heal. As security staff tried to keep Wolf under control, he continued his rant, giving away even more shocking information. He yelled that he was going to start his own show. "I was out of date," he said, and the network wanted him back. Reporters in the courtroom said it looked like something out of a dream. At least 3 people were hurt, including Wolf's own defense attorney, who was hit by a flying water pitcher. They had to drag him out of court, but he kept yelling about betrayal and his reputation, telling him that Fritz had planned to kill him. Later, lawyers said that his violent outburst pretty much ruined any chance of an appeal because it went against his defense team's case that he was just a misunderstood businessman who wasn't violent. In the days after Wolf's meltdown in court, his old friends and co-workers came forward with stories that shed new light on the man. Thomas Reynolds, who used to create American Pickers, said that Wolf would get very angry behind the scenes when things didn't go his way. Reynolds said that he kept up this perfect, friendly picture on camera. But when he wasn't on TV, he could be scary, especially for new employees. His whole mood would change when the cameras quit rolling. Others said that he was becoming more and more anxious over the past few years, sure that Fritz was planning to come back to TV with a different show. It's shocking everyone who works in reality TV about this case. Millions of people around the world watched American Pickers, but the show's future is now unclear. The History Channel took down all of Wolf's shows and said they were shocked and sorry for Fritz's family's loss. A number of big sponsors have pulled their support, and the future of the show is still uncertain. Fritz's family has asked to take control of his antique collection and intellectual property. They say they will honor his memory while also taking legal action against the network for letting Wolf act in more and more strange ways. Mental health professionals who looked into the case think Wolf may have had narcissistic personality disorder, which got worse because he was in the public eye for so long. A forensic psychologist who followed the trial, Dr. Robert Keller, said that this doesn't excuse what he did, but it does help explain why his public behavior and private behavior were so different. People who are narcissistic may seem calm and charming, but they may be holding a grudge and planning payback. Fritz's leaving the show would have been a selfish wound that would have lasted for years. What might be the most upsetting thing about Wolf is how he used his fame as a TV figure to change how people saw him. In the weeks after Fritz's death, he went on social media and sadly said that he had died because of complications from his stroke. He also used the time to talk about special products that would be made in Fritz's honor. This was not just murder, prosecutor Sarah Donovan said at the end of her case. There were millions of viewers who believed what they saw and mourned with a man who had killed his ex-partner and was using their sadness to make more money. In the weeks after Fritz's death, more than $1 million were raised, and a lot of it was sent to accounts that only Wolf could access. This court can't ignore how bad these acts are. Rick's lawyers filed an instant appeal in the days after the sentencing, saying that the punishment was too harsh and against the Constitution because the crimes were not violent. They also asked that Rick be let out on bond while the appeal was being heard. A request that was turned down led to pictures of Rick being led away in handcuffs being all over the news and social media. People had different reactions to Rick's guilt and sentence. Many lifelong fans were shocked and said they thought there must have been a mistake in the justice system. Others, especially those in the academic and cultural heritage groups, praised the harsh sentence as an important way to stop the lucrative trade in stolen artifacts. Rick's fans have come together in a way that has never been seen before to support him. Over 100,000 people have signed the Hearts for Harrison petition for a review of his case. Supporters have stressed that his term was too harsh compared to other similar cases. We're not saying that he shouldn't get in trouble if he broke the law. Melissa Jenkins is a political organizer. We're saying that giving someone a life term for a non-violent crime doesn't show justice, it shows anger. If you think Rick should get a second chance, you could sign the petition or give money to his civil defense fund. Even a small donation can help him get the tools he needs to make a strong case. Every prayer, every nice word, and every dollar for his defense in court helps. Based on what Corey said, the History Channel quickly distanced itself from Rick by canceling Pawn Stars and taking reruns off its immediate lineup. In a statement, the network said they were very upset with what Rick did and reaffirmed its commitment to treating historical artifacts and cultural material in a way that is legal and shows respect. Even though he was in trouble with the law, Rick still had a big effect on reality TV and the pawn business. Before he got into trouble with the law, he had built a business empire that went far beyond the pawn shop. Because he liked being an entrepreneur, he opened a number of restaurants and bars in Las Vegas. He also had plans to expand to other places. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop is still a popular place for tourists to visit in Las Vegas, even though the number of visitors dropped at first after Rick was found guilty. It is now run by his son, Corey Harrison. Corey has worked to change the shop's image by promoting openness in all dealings and teaming up with museums and schools to encourage responsible gathering. In an emotional interview 6 months after his father was sentenced, Corey talked about how hard it was to keep the family business going while also dealing with the real issues that were raised during the trial. He said, "We've put in place strict new rules for making sure the provenance of every item we buy. We want to be a part of the answer, not the problem, because what happened was wrong." Chumley has always seen Rick as a father figure and guide, and he has talked about how he feels in public. The Harrison family's main goal is still to fix their business and image, while also helping Rick with his appeal. Now that Corey is fully in charge of the family business, he has shown business sense that has surprised many people who saw him on the show, mostly as Rick's sometimes reckless son. There has been so much love and support for the Harrison family from people all over the world. Your words of support have been very important to our dad. Corey recently told the press that he reads every letter that is sent to him and feels strong knowing that a lot of people still believe in him, even after everything. Rick really needs your help right now. Every Sunday, the family sets up prayer circles outside the pawn shop, where fans meet to show their support. People who want to show their support but can't make it to Las Vegas are asked to send letters, cards, or even photos of happy times from the show. These small acts of kindness mean a great deal to a man who is going through a hard time. They went from running a small pawn shop to being on reality TV and starting their own business. Now they are a convicted felon serving a life term. The fact that he went from being a respected businessman to a shamed public figure shows how quickly things can change, especially in the harsh light of fame. People who write about culture have said that Rick's downfall is almost like a Shakespeare play, an individual who had a deep understanding of the past, but still used historical artifacts to attack and kill others. People now use his story to show how dangerous success can be, how easy it is to give in to pressures, and how the lines between doing good business and breaking the law can be fuzzy. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest news about this case, which has never happened before and has shocked reality TV and left a family business fighting for its life without its charismatic head. During these tough times, Rick Harrison needs all the help he can get. For those of you who have watched Pawn Stars and liked what Rick has done for TV over the years, please pray for him and send him good thoughts and words of support. People who care about Rick Harrison can leave notes on a website set up by his family. These messages will be sent to Rick in prison. The nice things you said to him could make all the difference during this tough time in his life. The website also has an address where letters of support can be sent. Rick's family says that hearing from fans has been his major source of strength during this difficult time. One family member said that Rick has always liked the people who watch Pawn Stars. He really needs to know that you're still on his side more than ever.